Hey, YouTube audience. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you an interview I did with Roger Moore, not the James Bond Roger Moore, but the hypnotherapist Roger Moore. And he's going to tell us about his new book, Becoming the Greatest Expression of You, and how the tips in that book can be helpful for caregivers to stay healthier while they're dealing with the stress of caring for a loved one. So I hope you enjoy it and come back for the next video. Today, I'm so happy to welcome my return guest, Roger Moore, who I interviewed, I think it's been a couple of years ago now. Roger is a certified medical counselor and hypnotherapist who's been in private practice since 1997. Through his work at Palm Desert Hypnosis, he offers medical hypnosis to help people at the end of life with anxiety, depression, pain, and other symptoms. Roger is the author of the recently published book, Becoming the Greatest Expression of You, which is a book about overcoming the shame and fear of the past to live life more joyfully now. And we're going to be talking about that today and some of the tools that Roger teaches. And you can learn more about Roger, his work, and his book at palmdeserthypnosis.com. So, Roger, welcome once again. Thanks for coming back to talk with me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me back again. And it's just always such a great pleasure to be here with you. And I love listening to your podcasts. I
Thank you.
feel very comfortable with you because I've heard your voice for so long and so often. I just love being with you. So thank you.
Well, thank you. That's nice. And then, so now you kind of know my style too. So
Yeah.
that probably helps. Well, the last time you were here, we talked a lot about using medical hypnosis for patients at the end of life, which I know you do. And today I wanted to go into your book, partly because it's filled with really helpful tools for people to just overcome some of the limiting beliefs and the wounds of the past. And it occurred to me that this book would be really helpful. I mean, helpful for one thing for patients at the end of life, but also for the caregivers who are taking care of them. And I realize so often we talk about patients facing the end of life, but we don't consider the needs of those who are caring for them 24/7. So I thought maybe it would be nice if today we focused on those individuals who also need self-care tools and need all of these tips as well for their own health.
I think it's a wonderful idea. And anytime I'm working with somebody at the end of life or somebody with like Parkinson's or other disease and illness, I beg for the caregivers to be part of the session so that they can learn the skills not only to support the person they're giving care to, but to support themselves.
Yeah, and I think recently a lot of us have been recognizing that we have kind of left caregivers out of the picture sometimes. I think doctors are guilty of doing that. Even hospice providers sometimes just imagine the caregiver will just take care of these things and take care of their loved one and forget about the needs of that person. But I wanted to start by one point that you make in the book that I think is really important for all of us to remember is that we can rewire the brain. It is possible to change the brain, even though we used to not believe that. But it's possible. And that's something that you point out in the book, that even up until the last moment of life, people can still change. And so I think that's really good news for everyone to hear. So just talk more about that.
Well, it is, and the research in neuroplasticity is pretty exciting, and it's just I can't keep up with it all. There's so much coming out. What they used to say was that it was probably possible to rewire the brain up until about age 35. But what they've since learned and are telling, what the neuroscientists are telling us now, is that at any age, we can fire and wire new neural pathways. And it's that whole concept of neurons that fire together, wire together. And so often what happens is in life, there's some sort of trauma, whether it's being 3 years old and running down the sidewalk and tripping on an ant and scraping our knee and being hurt and taking on some belief system there about fear and injuries or whatever it might be, but there was something happened and there was emotion around it and it became hardwired. And so many of my clients are dealing with, lots of anxieties and fears. And I tell them, look, you didn't get up this morning going, wow, it's a beautiful day. This is a perfect day for me to have anxiety. It's not something they chose, that they purposely said, I want to do this today, but it's there. It's become normal. It's become natural. But what we've discovered, or what neuroscientists have discovered, and part of a big piece of my book, is about how you can fire and wire new thoughts, and with strong enough emotion like joy, and fire and wire new neural pathways. And we do it often enough with strong enough emotion, it will hardwire. And when we stop firing the old fears or the old anxieties or whatever the old stuff is, they will literally separate. And so it's this whole thing of that we really can start thinking and feeling and behaving differently than we did previously. We can create our future to be greater than our past.
And Roger, one thing that I've read before is that our primitive brains tend to hold on to negative emotion more tightly than positive. And I think that's meant to be a protective mechanism, like to make sure we don't get hurt again,
Right.
or run into danger. But so I've read that you have to actually intentionally bring in positive emotion to override that negative system.
Very much so. And the other thing that happens in there is that, let's just say it's anxiety, and there's all the adrenaline of fight and flight, and running away from the saber-toothed tiger that's chasing us, whether it's the tax man or whatever it might be, that when we try to stop doing that, our bodies become so addicted to the adrenaline, the chemicals of that fear, that anxiety, that we literally go into a physical withdrawal. And it's really weird, or my technical term for it is wonky. There's this wonkiness that occurs, and it feels really uncomfortable because living in high anxiety has become normal and natural for us. And when we change to being calm and relaxed, our body's still craving the adrenaline. It doesn't seem to last too long, but there is that period of where I just alert people, watch for this, be aware of it. And when it comes up, just no need to judge it, right, wrong, good or bad, just isn't that interesting. There's that wonkiness, there's that old need for that anxiety.
Well, that's a really good point when we think about caregivers, because I think oftentimes they live in a constant state of
They
stress
do.
and anxiety because there's always something new happening, something they're responsible for, and oftentimes far more to do than they could even handle in a single day. So I imagine that they just stop even being aware of how stressed they are. They can't even tell at some point.
Well, it's become normal, it's become natural. And there's just so many things going on in their life, in giving that care, and then whatever they might have personally. They're constantly in that fight and flight.
Yeah, and we know from studies that have been done that many caregivers end up burning themselves out and actually destroying their own health in the process of, of a long-term care for a loved one. But it seems like with some of the tools that you offer, they might be able to reverse that cycle, that never-ending
Absolutely.
cycle of stress by learning tools. And one thing that I really like, you talked a lot about being able to experience joy, even in times of stress and difficulty. And sometimes I think maybe joy is missing for some of those caregivers.
Very much. Yeah. It's one of those things of where, there's these stressful situations that occur, and what I've talked about for years is that, you can be rushing to a meeting and you get caught in the freeway, you're stuck in traffic, you're going to be late for the meeting. There's no way around it. You're going to be late. Well, you can totally freak out and stress out and be all upset and show up to the meeting stressed and anxious, or sit back and relax, take some deep breaths, and show up to the meeting late and relaxed. Either way, you're going to be late. But we do have choice on how we choose to respond to it. And that's where I come from with joy of, okay, we can be caught up in the fear and the anxiety and the anger and the hurt and the frustration, whatever else, or we can step back from that, acknowledge this is hurtful or this is stressful, and also bring to mind joy, that we can create that place of happiness within it. And so one of the things that I do is I teach people how to pinpoint a happy and joyful time in their life. And for some people, they struggle a bit with that. For some, it's the struggle is, well, there's so many of them, we'll pick one. And when they start telling me about their joy, I can just, there's a certain point where their whole face lights up. And I stop them right there and it's, okay, what's the emotion you're feeling? And it's happy, it's love, it's whatever. And what is the physical sensation of that joy? Often it's a warmth or a tingliness somewhere in their body, an openness, a lightness, often in the heart, the chest. Sometimes it's in the gut or somewhere else, but what is that sensation? Because I want them to be able to recognize and memorize that emotion and the physical sensations that go with it, so they can connect to it much more easily. And then I'll be mean and interrupt them and have them focus for a moment on the stress, on the anxiety, the upset, whatever it was that brought them to me in the first place. And you can just see the whole physicality diminish. They just kind of shrink down. And I go, stop. Okay, now what are you feeling and where do you feel that? Well, it's a heaviness in the gut or a clenching or whatever. And telling them, okay, now that's your fire alarm. That's your alarm clock. That when you feel that feeling, to recognize it, that's your wake up call to, Roger, stop doing this. And at that point, you can switch back to the joy. And I have them flip through the joy and the upset several times to realize how quickly they can flip that switch. And it's pretty shocking for them when they realize that they can literally, in a matter of seconds, go from upset to joy. And that doesn't mean that the stressful situation isn't still there or that it's not real. It is. But again, we do have a choice how we respond to it. We can joyfully go to the meeting late.
It's such a great practice because you're teaching them to actually be able to listen to what their body's telling them. So for those people who've begun to experience stress as just how things are, they start to recognize, oh, I'm really stressed right now, and can come to understand, like, now is when I have to intervene and I have to do something to get myself out of this place because this stress is harmful to my health.
It is. And also not only the physical sensation, but also what are the thoughts that go with it? What are they thinking? What's the repetitive loop? I gotta get this done, I gotta get this done, or I'm late, or whatever it might be, to be able to recognize those hypnotic trances that we go into and to be able to stop it and quiet the mind. And then bring to mind the joy and the peace of mind and move back into that place of, okay, now I'm in control of me. And I have power to take action. I may have a mess to clean up, but I can clean it up.
And it's such a good point to remember that we can always find joy no matter what situation we're in, if we have that intention and if we look for it and we recall it and remember it. It just may not seem like it to us.
Right. One of the things I encourage, and I wrote about this in my book, laughter and the importance of laughter. And I encourage people, like first thing in the morning, or one of the first things they do in the morning is to watch something funny or read something funny or recall something funny or to do laughter yoga or anything along that line. I'm a big Mary Poppins fan. And one of my favorite scenes in the movie is the laugh scene, where Uncle Albert, Mary Poppins, and the whole crew are up there in the ceiling singing the song, and they're laughing hysterically. And it's the more I laugh, the more I'm filled with glee, and the more the glee, the more I'm a merrier me. Well, how can you not recall those lines or read those lines or hear those lines in a song and not have your spirit lifted. And I've actually shown that clip in a number of talks that I've done over the years. And I've never yet had anyone go through the entire scene without at least somewhat of a smile. Many people are laughing hysterically, but even the most stoic, person that's, sitting their arms crossed in the whole bit and, scowling on their face, end up smiling because you just can't not laugh and smile watching that scene.
It's
And so,
contagious.
yeah, when you bring those types of things to mind, well, then life changes.
That
And
makes me think, if we wanted to do something to help a caregiver, one of the best things we could do is help them laugh. Like,
absolutely,
bring something that would entertain them even for a few moments and laugh together, because
yeah,
that would probably change everything for the rest of that day.
very much. Yeah, and I've actually encouraged that of um, a client who has what she described as a grumpy caregiver. Caregiver said it was the other way around, but and so what I encouraged the client to do was to have her watch cartoons with her, to laugh with her. And it's exactly what happens. It changed their day. Because when the person came in to go to work that on her shift, they'd laugh. And that just changed the whole tone of how they were going to be together that day.
I know I've always appreciated that wherever I've worked, when there's someone on the staff who is hilarious and you can always count on for a joke or humor, how much it changes everything. It changes the whole tone of a meeting or a work day when there's a person like that who's able to bring humor into the situation.
Yeah, yeah.
But all of us can be that. We don't need a comedian. I mean, we can find a way to laugh on our own. Like you said, we can watch videos or old reruns or something.
Or even things, little clips on TikTok or whatever it might be, the dogs or other animals doing crazy things, or little kids. I love watching clips of little kids and their laughter and the silly things they do, and it's just it lifts your heart.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's such a good point, to learn how to recognize the stress when it's happening in your own body, and to remember the power of joy and laughter to turn that around, and to salvage the day maybe, but also to help your health.
Very much, yeah. Because laughter also, what the research shows, boosts the immune system. And we know stress weakens the immune system. So the more you can be in that place of joy, the more you can relax, the better it is for your own health and wellness.
Yeah.
And you also end up with more energy. Stress is so energy draining that when you relax, when you laugh, you can get more done quicker, and with less energy, you feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. One thing that I've observed about most caregivers that I've interacted with is that for some reason they have a hard time asking for help. And I'm not sure why it is. I'm not sure if they feel they have this whole responsibility. They're supposed to make everything better. It's their job, or they're afraid no one would want to help them. But it seems to me like that is a negative message in their heads that needs to be changed, because that's one of the reasons they get overburdened and in trouble, because they don't know how to say, I can't do all of this and I need someone to help me. So I wondered if you have some tools that might help people learn how to ask for help, and learn how to accept the fact that they can't do everything.
To me, it's permission, giving yourself permission that yes, you are a caregiver, but first of all, you have to give care to yourself. It's that put on your own oxygen mask first before you try to put on anybody else's. That unless you give that care to yourself, you're not going to be able to do this long term. And I think you're right. There's this magical belief that as caregiver, a person's supposed to be all, do all, end all, and there's no place for weakness or to be human, and they're supposed to be superhuman. One of the things that I've just adapted and played with and taught people, Gay Hendricks wrote a book called The Big Leap. And in there, he was actually talking about fear. And he said, imagine that you have a birthday cake and there's candles on it. And to just take a deep breath and celebrate the fear by blowing out the candle. And what I've done with that is started teaching people, when you're in those stressful times or when you're feeling down, feeling discouraged or whatever, identify the emotion, identify the thoughts, identify the emotions. Because first of all, when we acknowledge, oh, there's that stress, we've objectified it, we've separated ourselves from it, and it's no longer part of us. Mm-hmm. And now it's over here. Okay, now I can walk away from it, or I can start doing things differently to handle the situation versus being just caught up in the rat race of the stress. And so I'll have them blow out the candles on the stress and basically celebrate. Mm-hmm. Isn't that interesting? I was feeling stress, or I'm angry, or whatever, and blow it out. It's a very powerful process, and it works really great.
Yeah, I like that imagery. And to be able to see your stress as something, it's burning over there outside of you, but you have the power to blow it out with one single breath. And
then just instead of demonizing it, to celebrate it. Just like a birthday, I get to celebrate that I'm blowing out the stress.
And make a wish.
Yeah. And make a wish for calm mind or quiet or whatever, peace of for joy and love in my heart.
I really like that. And one of the tools that you wrote about that was also of interest to me was talking about using mental rehearsal. And so to kind of get out of the rut of envisioning that everything will go wrong. And I was thinking that caregivers probably fall into that rut of, oh no, the last time this happened, it went like this is going to be terrible, anticipating the worst that could happen. So tell us what mental rehearsal is and how to use that.
Well, as you were saying, it's that thing of people generally mentally rehearse, woe is me and it's awful. They mentally rehearse how horrible the day is going to be, or they got so many things they got to do, they can't possibly get it all done, or they just get into that negative train of thought. And I like to use teeth brushing as a perfect place to do this, because it's generally one of the first things we do in the morning. And so why not meditate then on having a great day, on creating the day that you want to have. And that's what the mental rehearsal is all about. And there's a difference between mentally rehearsing your day and imagining your day. One of the examples I often talk about is if I'm getting ready to go to Maui, I'm imagining getting ready to go to Maui, I'll go to the bedroom and get swimsuits out of the bottom dresser drawer, and I'll go to the closet and get t-shirts, and I'll probably glance at the blue jeans hanging there because I'm going to want those in the airplane. But otherwise, all I need is swimsuits, because I'm going to be on the beach rotating, and I'm going to be in the water swimming and snorkeling and body surfing and boogie boarding. And one night I bet I'll go down to Maui Dive and rent some dive equipment and go to Black Sand Beach and go down the lava tube and check out the sharks. Well, what happened to getting ready to go to Maui? I went diving with sharks, for goodness sakes. I got lost. That's what happens when we imagine.
Mhm.
Mental rehearsal is much more purposeful. I'm going to go out the garage and get the suitcases, bring them in the house, lay them on the bed, unzip them, open them up, go to the bottom dresser drawer and get the swimsuits, the closet shelf to get the t-shirts, the corner of the closet to get flip-flops, the office to get phone cords, power cords, whatever. Go to the bathroom and get, excuse me, get toothpaste and toothbrush and deodorant and razor, all those things. So that when it comes time to go to Maui, we've already laid the groundwork. We have those neural pathways. Excuse me.
That's okay. Okay.
My apologies. We'll have those neural pathways already laid. And when it comes time to go to Maui, we've got the groundwork done. We've already got the plan laid out and makes it much easier. So for the day, why not mentally rehearse as a caregiver, having a very positive, wonderful, joyful, fun, loving, even easy day with the person you're giving care to? Why not mentally rehearse easily or joyfully taking the person you're giving care to a doctor's appointment,
Mhm.
or helping them bathe or whatever it is, but mentally rehearse it going positively versus mentally rehearsing the sinking thinking of it's not going to work, it's going to be horrible, it's going to be awful. Either way, it's all mental rehearsal. And from my perspective, it's all hypnosis. We can either stand there awfulizing and be in that hypnotic trance, or we can mentally rehearse and create a positive trance of it going well with that positive mental rehearsal. Actually, what we're creating is a positive future fantasy.
Mhm. Hmm. I like that idea. And when I think about myself, how often I find myself experiencing dread when I have something I need to do. And the dread is all filled with, well, one time when I did that, something went wrong. It didn't go well. One time when I filmed an interview, the Wi-Fi went out and we didn't get to finish the interview. So what if that happens? Is that dread of something going wrong again that went wrong before, even though 99 times out of 100, nothing went wrong. But it's funny how we hang on to that one negative time.
80, I think it's 87% of the things that we worry about never happen. And when I hear some of the anxiety, some of the worries that people have, and well, has that ever happened to you? No. But it happened to somebody somewhere. They heard about it. Or maybe, as you said, it did happen. One time the Wi-Fi did go out. So then it's like, from then on, you're going to, every time you log on, you're going to worry about the Wi-Fi going out as you record a podcast. And that one time when it happened, what was the worst thing that happened?
Yeah, just had to redo it.
Yeah,
That's all. So not that big a deal.
yeah, sun still came up the next day.
Yeah. Yeah, it is funny how we get those caught in those loops and the unnecessary stress we put ourselves through because of that.
And that one time that it happened, there was frustration, there was fear, whatever emotions around it. And it's like it becomes hardwired. So that every time you go to log in, there's that thought, well, what if? But again, you can learn to change those thoughts. You can memorize the joy, memorize that it's going to go well. That doesn't mean that the Wi-Fi won't go down or the internet won't go down again or the power won't go out. I was in a meeting, actually co-leading a meeting last month, and about 5 minutes into it, we lost our power and internet for over an hour, and the meeting was over by the time I was, there was a co-facilitator and he winged it, it went well.
Things work out one way or
Yeah.
another. without our worry and our dread.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know you write a lot too about using meditation, and it seems like you have some good suggestions for how to use meditation without making it a really big process of trying to learn how to meditate. And so would you talk a little bit about that, the power of meditation and how we can learn to use it?
So when people ask me, and this is a question I'm often asked of, well, what's the difference between meditation, hypnosis, meditation, and prayer? And from my perspective, it's all a continuum. I don't think you can take prayer and put it in a definite little box. And I don't think you can take meditation and clearly define it in its own little box and compartmentalize that or hypnosis and compartmentalize that and put it in its own little box. I think they're all shades of the same thing. I talk about prayer being my communication with God. Meditation is me listening. And hypnosis is me talking with myself. And I may start in prayer and switch into meditation and back to prayer and into self-hypnosis and all unconsciously not aware of it unless I stop and think about it, usually after the fact of, oh yeah, I was kind of all over the place there. Isn't that interesting? And, so many people, when I start talking about meditation and what I do is I call the meditation with the greatest expression of you being reading, whatever they've written to be about their best self and to memorize the joy and mentally rehearse joyfully having an awesome day. That is the meditation that I'm referring to. And some people will say, well, I don't have time. Well, I'm not asking that they get in the lotus position for 30 minutes. But again, teeth brushing, 2 minutes the toothbrush runs, is a wonderful time to meditate. For 2 minutes, you get to focus on having a joyful, positive day. Or while you wash your face or brush your hair, those are all wonderful times to meditate because you're going to be thinking about something. And again, you can be thinking about, how am I going to get all this done? And hey, the kid's here and I got to get this done. And I bet I'm going to have a fight with mom when I'm there to give care to her or whatever it might be. Or you can meditate on it all going smoothly and well and having a joyful day and having a great time with mom. And along with that, I teach people self-hypnosis. And I teach it in such a way that they can learn to give themselves suggestions, get as relaxed as they can be in the moment, and return back to doing what they need to do as quickly as in 1 minute. And along with that, I also teach people self-hypnosis that they can do eyelids wide open, and while they're bathing the person they're giving care to or assisting in some way. I remember my sister used to get so frustrated with my mom in giving care to her. And she'd have all these thoughts running about how angry she was and frustrated she was and how it wasn't fair. And here she was being the loving daughter and mom wasn't appreciative and all those things. Well, that's a pretty powerful negative hypnotic trance. And she was doing it with eyelids wide open. Well, if you can do that with your eyelids wide open, you can absolutely certainly be in that place of joy and love and start giving yourself suggestions about having fun with this, about being calm, about being relaxed, about being patient, about being gentle, whatever the messages are you need in that moment. I have all the strength and energy I need to make it through the next 3 hours or whatever those thoughts are, turn it around and make them positive. And you can do that while you're cooking dinner. You can do that while you're bathing somebody or vacuuming the rug or whatever it might be. It's all self-hypnosis. And it's very powerful.
And you mentioned having people write about their best self, which I think that's really powerful. I remember the first time I heard you talk about that, it was really stunning to me to think about, wow, like I do have a best self and I know I know who my best self is. And if I begin to put that together as an image in my mind, I can recall that. But tell our listeners more about that because I don't do the best job of
Oh,
describing
you're
it.
doing great. It's awesome. So I have people, I'm a dog person. And so often if somebody has a dog and or has had a heart dog, a dog that they're really close to, will use that. Sometimes it's little kids, that 2 to 6 age range, when kids are still loving and lovable and before they become more individuated. Um, but I'll ask, so, you know, when you walk in the room and your 3-year-old granddaughter comes running to you, arms wide open, and that look in her eyes, or when you walk in the room and your dog comes running to you, and the look in your dog's eyes, if they were telling me who you are, not what you do, but about your beingness, who would they tell me you are? What words how would they describe you? And we'll start with that of loving and joyful and kind, or whatever words the person tells me. And I said, okay, so you got a great start here. Write at least one, but no more than 3 sentences, one short, that describe your best self, that describe the greatest expression of you. And it may or may not include those words, but it's a place to start, to get the essence of it, the feeling of it. And the question when I ask them to write it on a sticky note and put it in their bathroom mirror so they read it first thing every morning. That's usually the first place people go, is to the bathroom. And then to email me a copy of it. And when I receive the email, I always ask the same question: does this spark joy? And I just had one the other day. She says, no, I need to redo it.
Hmm.
And about 3 hours later, I got another email from her. She had rewritten it, changed a few words, and I felt the joy just reading it. Okay. For me, mine was a full 3 sentences, and it was somewhat cumbersome. I felt joy reading it. And what I always tell folks is, over time, it'll evolve. And this is not the 10 Commandments cast in stone. And if a day or two after writing you don't like a word, cross it out and change it. But we had a yellow lab that was pure white. Her name was Luna. And in her eyes, I could do no wrong. And if she was always right up next to us. I'd be standing at the kitchen sink washing dishes. Sure enough, she'd be laying on the floor, pressed up against my feet. That's how close she wanted to be. And if I forgot that she was there and stepped back and stepped on her foot or an ear or a tail or whatever, there'd be that brief yelp. And then immediately her butt would be wiggling, the tail would be wagging, her eyes were just glowing with love. I could do no wrong in her eyes. And so my greatest expression is, God, let me be as good as Luna thinks I am today.
Hmm.
And Luna died December of 2020. So it's been over a year. But I still focus on, can I be that guy? And the weird sound going, I'm not sure what that is.
Hmm.
But throughout the day, as I realize I'm being my less than my best self. The other night we were on a camping trip, and the veggie burgers were cooking way too fast, and the rest of the dinner wasn't ready. And it was like, oh, what am I going to do now? And I could, there was this stress, this tension, and I heard the tension in my voice. And I was like, oh, are you being your best self right now?
Mm.
No, but I can be. And I was able to switch. Okay, hamburgers are going to be overdone, or veggie burgers are going to be overdone. And I shut the heat off, and then the last minute just turned it back on to heat them up a little bit. And we had a wonderful evening, a wonderful meal, and life was great. But it could have gone downhill real quick because I was stressing over overdone burgers. And that's what the best self is all about, is getting back to that place of, am I being my best self now? If I am, awesome. And if I'm not, well, then switch, change, memorize the joy, remember the joy, and get that back to that place of joy.
And then I could see for caregivers, including in that, my best self also knows how to take care of me, and that I need time for myself and I need to think about what I need. So my best self is balanced and isn't
Yes,
afraid to ask somebody else, could you come over and help me this afternoon? Because I can't do this by myself.
very much. Yeah. Or the other thing is to ask, for those caregivers that get to go home, to ask the people they live with to help out. After giving care to somebody all day long, now you don't necessarily have to go home and cook and wash dishes and clean house and do all those things. Engage the people in your house. Tell them, I need help. I need you to wash the dishes. I need you to cook dinner, or whatever. I need you to run the vacuum, and to empower them to ask their partners, their spouses, their kids, whoever's there, their roommates even, to help out. And it's okay to ask for help. It's a good thing to ask for help.
Yeah, definitely. It gives other people the opportunity to be helpful, because sometimes they're just waiting for that, or
Yeah,
looking for a chance to
yeah.
do something.
Or as I recently heard one couple, she was upset because he never helps her. And his response was, you never let me.
Hmm.
I quit offering because you always say no. And so now she started asking, and he's happy to be
Well, that's
able
a
to
very, very good
give her
point.
support, to help her, and feels that that's a way he can show her his love. And it actually feel love from her because she's allowing him to help her. So yeah,
Mhm.
ask for help. Let the people know in your life that what you need.
Yeah, I really like that. And overcome any shame you have or embarrassment about asking for help, because it's a normal, natural, healthy thing to do.
I can do it all myself.
Mhm.
That's often what I hear. I'm supposed to do it all myself. And and often the question I ask was, well, who said that? Who told you that? Where'd you learn that?
Yeah.
And most people are stumped for an answer. Well, I don't know. It's a belief they've taken on. And the great thing about neuroplasticity is we can change those beliefs.
Yeah, definitely. And you also write a lot about the power of gratitude. So I wanted to talk about that, and finding ways to experience gratitude even when we're in difficult situations.
Gratitude is again so healthy and so important. But I'm going to ask you to ask all the listeners just to play with me for a moment, and imagine that having a lemon, and slicing through the center of that lemon, and taking one of those halves of lemon. As you start slicing through that, you can actually feel the spray of lemon juice across the back of your hands. And you begin slicing through one of those quarters of lemon, and you notice the sun that's glistening off the lemon juice that's running off the cutting board onto the counter. And now just reach down and pick up one of those wedges of lemon, and bring it up to your mouth, and just bite right down into it. And what just happened there? I just saw it.
I felt it.
What else did you notice from biting into that lemon?
Well, I could just feel my taste buds. I could feel saliva in my taste buds in my mouth.
Okay. And were you actually eating the lemon?
Um, well, no, not in real life. I was
No,
imagining it,
but
but
our
yeah.
bodies do not know the difference whether you
Yeah.
eat lemon or imagining lemon. It's going to start responding the same way. So when do you say thank you?
When do I say thank you?
Mhm.
Um, I try to say thank you to people who do something kind for me. I try to always think of it in the moment to say
Okay.
thank you. Um, I recently have tried every time I journal, I end my journal by writing thank you and thinking of reasons to be grateful in my journal. That's been
Awesome.
newer for
Okay.
me, but
And have you said thank you for your next birthday's birthday gifts?
no, not yet.
Why not?
Okay. Well, because I don't know if I'll get any, but it hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't happened yet. Every cell of our bodies is pre-programmed to know through years of experience that when we say thank you, it's a done deal. Somebody brought us a cup of coffee and we say thank you. Somebody gives us a birthday gift and we say thank you. Every cell of our body knows that when we say thank you, it's done. So one of the things that I encourage people to do is first thing in the morning as part of the meditation is to end it with saying thank you as part of the mental rehearsal. Thank you for giving me an awesome day. Thank you for making this next meeting go really well and smoothly. Thank you for me passing this exam or whatever it might be, but to say it before the fact, ahead of time. Because just like with imagining the lemon, there wasn't a lemon and yet your body started producing the same chemicals, started reacting as if it was real. When we say thank you, our bodies have no choice but to push us in that direction to have a wonderful day, to push us in the direction of being more loving or kind or whatever it is we're saying thank you for. Our bodies don't know that it's not a done deal because it thinks if you said thank you, it's done. And it's amazing the power that has just in our own thoughts to accept that it's going to be an awesome day. It's going to be a beautiful day. Or I'm going to accomplish this with ease. Or I'm going to have a creative time writing or someone, a young kid was telling me the other day how well he did at a piano recital. And before he started the recital, he thought of his greatest expression. He memorized the joy. He mentally rehearsed the recital, the songs he was playing going masterfully. And he said, thank you for it going so well. And it was his best performance ever because he was in that space of, I got this and I can do this. And yeah, thank you. It went well. And he did. He did a great job.
I love that.
Go ahead.
I was going to say one thing. I want to say thank you to you because when I first heard you speak, I think it was in 2019, we were on a panel discussion together
Yeah.
at a conference. You talked about a tool there that you use called Right Now, I'm Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And that, I have to tell you, that got me and my entire family through these whole 2 years of the pandemic because I taught it to so many people during those 2 years when people would start to panic or feel stressed or feel like things are out of control. I don't know what's going on. I taught people what you taught us to say, but right now I'm okay, and to stop in that second and think about, but just look around me. I'm okay. And even to feel gratitude because right now where I am and what's happening in my life in this moment, it's all okay. But again, you can explain that better better than I do, but I just wanted to thank you because that has been a really powerful tool that just it helps me always just shift out of a negative place very quickly.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. I've forgotten talking about it at that conference. Um, but yeah, when I had a client earlier this morning that he's in chronic pain, and it was our first session, and lots of suffering going on. And one of the first things that I did was I taught him Roger's wiggle,
Mm.
which is simply wiggle your toes, wiggle your butt, breathe in through your nose, and let it out through your mouth. And immediately I could just see him kind of melt because he got out of the fear, out of the anxiety, out of the suffering trance of pain and back in his body. And he just softened and his level of discomfort decreased. And then I said to him, so right now in this moment, are you okay? In spite of the pain, are you okay? And he looked at me rather surprised and he goes, yeah, I am. How can that be? How can I have this pain and also be okay? And I laughed and I said, well, is it okay that you're okay? And he goes, yeah. And in a matter of moments, using the traditional pain scale, which I don't use, but he went from, I think he said he was at an 8 when we first started, down to a 2
Wow.
in terms of discomfort, just by stepping out of the awfulizing of the pain, acknowledging, yes, there's pain there, but in spite of that, I'm okay. And he was able to get back in his body. And then we did other things that I taught him how to reduce discomfort and increase comfort. I talk about increasing comfort. Let's not focus on the pain. Let's focus on comfort, feeling better. And worked with him at teaching those skills. But it's all from that place of right now, I am okay. And I'm sure I probably talked about Marie in that conference we were at, a woman who, one of the last things she said before passing, it was a few hours before she passed, and the family called me to their home, and when she realized I was there in the room, she got conscious enough and called me over to the bed, and she grabbed my arm, dug her nails in to the point of where I had a couple little spots of blood and a purple spot from bruising. And she goes, Roger, this hurts like a son of a gun. And then she just smiled, just glowed. And she says, but I'm okay.
Hmm.
And that was one of the last words she ever said.
Wow.
And the last things her brother and her sister heard her say was, I'm okay. And, if we can all die in that place, how beautiful would that be? If caregivers can acknowledge that this is stressful, or this is upsetting, or this is frustrating. But, I got clean clothes, I've got food in my belly, I've got a dry roof over my head, I have a bed to sleep on, I've got air to breathe right now. I'm okay. It just makes a huge shift, a huge change in how we view life and the issues that we're challenged with.
Yeah, I know I found it to be empowering when I say to myself, but I'm actually okay. These things are happening and it's scary and I don't know what will come next and we're dealing with the unknown, but I'm also okay. And then I remember like, oh, that's right. I have all these tools. There are things I know, there are things I can do. I need to be in that place where I feel powerful enough that I can do what I need to do in this moment. I'm not defeated and overwhelmed by what's happening.
Absolutely. And you said something important there, that none of these techniques or tools are about making the scariness go away, or the anger, hurt, fear, sadness go away. It's acknowledging, oh, there's that hurt or that anger or whatever it might be, and I'm okay. And then once we get to that space and we've objectified it, we've separated from it, then we have power over it. And okay, we have choices. How are we going to handle this? How do we respond? And that's, as you said, very empowering to take on that I'm okay.
Yeah, definitely. I just feel like if caregivers just remembered those four simple words right now, I'm okay, and they could teach that maybe to the patients that they're caring for also, and use it together, because to remind each other, but right now we're okay, right
Yeah,
now
yeah,
we're going to be okay.
yeah, yeah. Um, I remember when my mom was passing and being there, and she would. I had taught her I'm okay, and she'd start talking about something, and then she'd look at me and smile, but I'm okay. And those last few days of her life, or when she was conscious, were some of the happiest, most fun times. And we laughed and we joked and we went through photo albums, and she told stories, and sometimes I could see that she was hurting. And Mom, do you need anything? No, that hurts, but I'm okay.
Mm.
She'd continue on, because as long as she stayed in that place, as long as she laughed and told stories, it changed her whole trance state. It changed her from pain to joy.
Mm. That's really beautiful. And I wanted to ask you about one last tool I think fits with all these other tools, but kind of ultimately the need we have for self-forgiveness, because no matter how hard we're trying to do our best and trying to make things go right and do better, there will always be things we need to forgive ourselves for. And I think that that's something we don't emphasize enough in our society. People don't even really understand how important it is to be able to have self-forgiveness.
Well, one of the misconceptions that I hear from people is forgiveness means making a fairy tale, creating some story out of how it's okay that I did this, or it's okay that somebody did that to me, or whatever. And to me, that's not at all what forgiveness is about. It's not okay that somebody is mean and cruel to somebody. It happened. They hurt them, they injured them physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever they might have done. It happened. But my dad went through a period in his life where he was abusive, and there was no way I was going to forgive him for that. It was not right. It was wrong. And then it really ticked me off when years later, when there was a sweet, gentle, loving grandpa and great grandpa that was just this kind guy. And it was like, well, where were you when I was growing up? And that's separate. Those judgments I had about him, and those stories that I kept replaying over and over and over and over about whatever he was going through at that point in time in his life, and the anger and the abusiveness, they were not happening in those moments. They happened 65 years ago. Okay. They're not happening now in this moment, except for if I'm playing in between my ears, if I'm playing those movies over and over and over. So how I teach forgiveness is the first sentence is, I forgive myself for judging myself as, and then you have people just like a blank line. I forgive myself for judging myself as not good enough. I forgive myself for judging myself as stupid, or I forgive myself for judging myself as cruel, or whatever our judgments are. And we might have been cruel. And it's not about making it okay that we were cruel. It's about stopping the judgment of it. Okay, what did I learn? And how can I be and do differently in the future? And the other one is, I forgive myself for judging blank as blank. I forgive myself for judging my dad as abusive. I forgive myself for judging somebody else for whatever they did. And again, it's not creating a different story about what they did. It's us stopping the judgment of it. We're told not to judge anyway. So let's stop judging it, because it's really our judgments that kill us, that eat us, that create stress and anxiety. And when we stop judging it and just, yeah, that happened. It's not happening now in this moment. In this moment, I'm okay. So rather than focusing on all that horror or the trauma, why not focus on the beautiful day it is outside, the birds that are out there singing? I don't know if you can hear them, but there's mockingbirds out there in the patio singing away. To be able to find joy in that versus traumas of 65 years ago. And when we can do that, when we can let go of those judgments, it's life-changing. And I actually was able to develop a really good relationship with my dad once I let go of my judgments of him.
Wow. That's just so powerful. And it makes sense. That kind of completes the picture, because we can forgive ourselves. Yes, we want to have gratitude and we want to find joy and we want to get out of our negativity, but sometimes we won't be able to. And then we need to forgive ourselves for that, for judging ourselves for not being able to be perfect every day.
Right. Yeah. Yep. I forgive myself for judging myself as being less than my best self.
Yeah. That's so powerful.
It is. Yeah.
Well, I want to remind everyone I have a copy of your book here, Becoming Becoming the Greatest Expression of You by Roger Moore, not the actor.
James Bond.
James Bond, yeah. And so I guess we can direct people to your website, Roger, if they wanted to get in touch with you or work with you.
Yes, they can go to Palm Desert Hypnosis or Hypnosis Health Info. The book, they can go to either one of those and they'll find it. Or there's a webpage called greatestexpressionbooks.com. Or they can just simply go to Amazon and Google or search Becoming the Greatest Expression of You, and it'll come up there. So the number of ways they can access it, but it's out there.
Well, it's a really helpful book, and it's practical in that there's so many good tools in it that you teach us how to use. And like I said, I've been using your Best Self and Right Now I'm Okay tools for several years, and they've made a huge difference. So I was really excited to learn more tools from the book. So thanks for writing it, and thank you for talking to me about it today, Roger.
It's always love talking with you, and it's exciting for me to be able to talk about the book and share it. So thank you.
Well, you're very welcome, and I'm assuming there'll be another time we'll get together.
Looking forward to it. I'd love to.
Yeah, same here. All right, take care.
Thank you. You too.